Hi guys, in today's review will be on a all new tooled item from Hornby. This all new tooled item is the Lner B17 Streamlined. Hornby, yes, have done a B17 before, but they did the original versions that Gretley designed. But Gretley did design two Streamlined when he was going through his Streamlined phases at the Lner. And I went for the apple green version. The code you need for this version is R30136. It's a B17. The running number for the locomotive is 2859. It's era free, being Lner, and it's named East Anglia. It came out around July and August of 2024. I believe it was announced in the 2023 range, so it's moved on pretty fast. The box actually says 24, but I think that's wrong. From here, it looks like a stunning model. So let's get into the review and see what it's all about, shall we? So here goes. So with the model, you do get some detail parts to add yourself if you choose, and you also get a little leaflet of what to do and what not to do. I shall go through it now. So in the detail bag, you get the brake rigging for the front and back of the locomotive, the tender and the loco itself. You also get a front coupler pocket to add yourself. You have to screw it in. It's an M1, you have to add it yourself, so it looks nice without it. Or if people like to run it with, you just screw it in and add it. You also get some drain cocks, and the drain cocks, they are painted. You get the front small tension lock coupler to put in the pocket if you want to, or a spare one for the back. You get an air pipe or vacuum pipe. You also get a manual inside there about the brake rigging as well. And the bag is resealable. So now as we move on to the leaflet or the manual you get with the model. So the first page, as you look at it, it tells you general information, running tips, about lubricating the model, about the chassis. Sometimes it will have fluff from running in, how to service it, cleaning the track, do not connect direct to the power mains. If you have any issues, please contact your Hornby direct suppliers. Then on the two insert pages in the centre, you get where to lubricate, you get your accessories, like I said, you get drain cocks, you get front coupler assessment and screws, you get a vac pipe, buckeye coupler as well with free links, they are there. I'm not sure if the free links are metal or plastic, you also get them, and you get a rear vac pipe as well, and it shows you where to add it. Also tells you about the loco and tender connection. This is the old style Hornby one. If you want to DC sit it or sound, it's in the tender. It tells you how to take the tender top off to get in there. The only thing it doesn't tell you how to do is take the body shell off, which would be good if you're going to lubricate inside the model. Hornby haven't shown you on this. Then on the back page, it's safety notice, TV suppressors and spare parts and service, and some important information says handle with care, because the model is very delicate and it's the scale as well. Please read this leaflet fully, it says on the back as well. So now as we do a look at the front of the locomotive, as you can tell, this front of the locomotive is a streamlined version, a bit like the W1, the P2 and the A4s. And from this angle, to me, it looks correct. So we do have metal sprung buffers, and they are easily sprung. We get them front and back, so we get them tender as well. Down below, like I said, on the bogie, there's a hole to add your NEM pocket to with a little screw that's in the detail bag. And then you can add your front coupler or coupler of your choosing, depending if it fits in the slot. There's also some irons to knock stuff off the tracks down there. I think they're called guard irons. They are down there as well on the bogie. As we move on up, the buffer beam itself and the buffer shanks, they are in black. As I said before, this is a streamlined one, so they all are air smooth or streamlined. We do have a number of the loco on there, and I think there possibly is the class. From here, I can't really see the class, but I can see the number. And the number is 2859, and this was one of two that was streamlined by the Lner. There's a hole for your vac pipe, and there's a hole for your hook with chain links on. If you're going to add them, I think you should add a little bit of glue to slot them in. Sometimes they just slot in and they stay in. And for this angle down the side, you can also see where the crew would walk. There's like a grating on the side. As we move on up to where the smoke box area normally is, we do have the two lamp irons, or is it three, along the bottom. We have a few bits of hinges that would come down or open for when you get inside to clean the ash out and smoke and all that sort of stuff, clean it all out, like you would do on an A4. Then inside, I think there is actually a smoke box door handle in real life. Then at the top, we have another lamp iron. We have, I think it's a metal whistle, and then we have the single chimney at the top. So now, as we move on to the side of the locomotive, both sides of the locomotive are different in some way. So let's start with the other side and what's different about it. So just before the cab area, on the running plate, there is a section of it being pulled down and painted black. I've seen that on quite a lot of my A4s or streamlining versions that I have. It could be for the sanding or lubrication, I am not too sure, but it's there and it's painted black. The other difference that I can see is that near the cab again, there is no pipework sticking out like there is around this side, which hopefully I'll show you later. Below the cab, there is an extra bit of valve work or metal work around the wheels going up to the cab, I believe. That isn't round this side. Again, that part is on a couple of A4s that I know about. We do have the livery. The livery is in apple green with boiler banding. The boiler banding is white, black and white. We have it around the streamline, so it follows the streamlining of the front Bugatti nose, and then it curves in like a letter C. We also have it along the boiler, like I said, we have it around the cab. Then where it is black, we also have red lining. So along the splashes or the valances, black steps. We also have it on some of the wheels as well. The body itself on the loco is die cast, which is great. We have the name of the locomotive, which is a separately applied part, and I believe it is etched as well, and that says East Anglia. The only other one that was streamlined, I believe, is City of London. We do have a small handrail around both sides, but around this side there is some separately applied moulding pipes that have been moulded into the boiler. They are not around the other side. I'm not sure what they're for, but they are here. On the skirts or the valances, there is some footholes that have been picked out near the front. Everywhere you look on this model, there is rivets, lots of rivets everywhere you look. I'm guessing for bits that would lift up for maintenance and stuff like that. Like I said, this is an Lner apple green one. It is designed by Gresley. The wheel configuration is a 460, which makes it a B class. The wheels have all been painted nicely. They've all been picked out with lining as well. In the centre, it's black with more lining as well. The rest of it is green. Same goes for the front bogie. The rivets on there, and there is also lots of painted stuff on the wheels. Between the cab and the boiler or the streamlining, there is a little pipe sticking out on this side, which I think is the reverser. I could be wrong, but I think it's the reverser, and above that we do have some lining around the windows of the cab. As we now move to the cab area, the cab area itself is wonderful. We do have the steps picked out and lined. They are black with red lining. We have the number again of the locomotive, which is 2859. We have separately applied handrails. Everywhere you look, they're all separately applied and they're all very fine. We have lining around the windows, and we also have a guard on the window between both of them, so in the middle of both there is a small tiny bit of plastic or glass in real life guard to protect the crew. All of the lettering and printing is fine and it is perfect. So as we now look at the part of the review that I want to look forward to, which is the cab detail. First off, this does not have flickering firebox, which doesn't bother me. Comparing it to the B17 that Hornby did a few years ago, the cab on this and the cab on that are night and day. Everything on this has been picked out. I think the dials have got numbers on. I think the water gauges have a little bit of water in. All the piping is picked out in the correct colour and style. The regulator is red, I believe. The seats, there's no wood flooring or anything like that. It does have separately applied glazing bars or glazing in the windows. Hopefully now there should be a picture of the original B17 that I have. And as you can see, most of it is just painted in one colour to a degree. Again, it's something you're not going to see when it's going around, but it's just nice to know it's there. And I'm a little bit unsure if it is the same backhead than the others, or is it a new one. As we move on to the front of the tender. The front of the tender, again, is streamlined, as you can tell by the cover at the top. Everything in there is picked out in black, unfortunately. We have I think a water scoop or water handle. We have a brake handle as well. We have a chute for the coal. We also, I think, have a few rivets dotted around, and there's a little bit of support from the top of the tender. As we now move on to the side of the tender, both sides of this tender are exactly the same to me. So like the locomotive, the tender is in apple green with the Lner font going across, and it is printed perfectly fine with the shadowing. The lining again is white, black and white. As you can tell, this is a streamlined one. We have separate applied handrails at either end as well. There's a few rivets on the streamlining at the top, and the tender itself is different all over, different shape completely. We also have lining on the chassis of the tender, if that makes sense. Again, that's in red. It's a black background with red lining. On the steps, around the axles and the frames, I believe there is metal wheels under there as well. Overall, it's a different tender to the original one that the B17s had. As we now move on to the back of the tender, let's start down the bottom. So down the bottom we already have the NEM pocket already there, and we also have the small tension lock already applied, with a few guard irons to knock stuff off the tracks. As we move on up from the NEM pocket, we do have the buffer beam and buffers. The buffers themselves are metal and they are sprung, like I said. The buffer beam and shanks, the shanks themselves are in black with a few rivets. The buffer beam itself is in red with, I think it's lining. There is a hook already applied, and there also is a hole, I believe, for your detail part, or it's already been added depending on the instructions. As we move on up, we do have the usual arrangements of lamp irons, which is 3 along the bottom, and they do look to be separately applied. We also have some steps going up. We have a handle or a hand grab in the centre. Then we have another lamp iron where the lining stops. The lining itself again is white, black and white with an apple green background. The steps I believe are separately applied at the factory, or it could be one of the moulded ones, but either way they look fantastic from here. And then as you can tell, again, the streamlining continues with a slight elongated oval. That makes sense. And that's the back of the tender. As we now do an aerial view on top of the tender. So the top of the tender is streamlined. There is a massive casing over the water filler cap with a guitar pick style insert there, with the water filler cap down there with I think a separately applied handle for the water filler cap. The water filler cap does not open. Again, it's all in black. And if you look closely enough, there is that half moon thing that most models have, or most locomotives have, that I keep forgetting what it's for. That is underneath the streamlining. As we move along now, we do have the cold load. The cold load again is plastic, but it looks realistic and it is removable. Very easy to remove this, just to slightly pull it out and lift it up. It's done. Again, everywhere you look on the tender, there is lots of rivets for the streamlining. You can see the supports from here, and you can also see the doors for the cab as well. As we now do an aerial view on top of the locomotive, let's start in the usual place, which is the cab roof. The cab roof is in a V shape, like I said, the pointy V shape. We do have vents that do move, all 4 of them. There's a few rivets as well. We have the safety valves in the centre, in the middle, and they are metal. It's a great touch by Hornby. And from here you can see a bit of the lining around the windows on the outside. There's a small rain ducket at either side of the cab doors, where the cab doors would, or the cab windows are. As we move along now, like I said, this is die-cast. It's in the Lner apple green with lining, and you can see the lining on the banding here, on the boiler. You can also see, I'm not sure if it's prototypical or not, there is a line going across from the cab to the chimney. It's a little bit noticeable, but I don't know if it's meant to be there or not. As you get to the third green patch between the lining, there is where the dome normally would be, but it's been welded out to streamlining. But you can see the rivets, and you can see the plate that was over it. And you can see here, the boiler or the body takes a different shape to all the others for the streamlining. We do have the chimney that is iconic for the A4s, but it has it here as well. I've mentioned that the whistle is metal. In the chimney itself, I believe there is room for Hornby to put a smoke generator if they want to later on down the line. I believe you can see straight through it. One thing I will add is there is a steam pipe going from the boiler to the cylinders. It's just sticking out a little bit on both sides of the loco, just below the nameplate. You can just see it. It is noticeable. From this view as well, you can see the walkway for the crew to clean and maintain, and you can see the grated area at the front. And then we get to the metal sprung buffers. As we now do an underneath look at the locomotive itself, and the cylinders, you can see 2 holes on each cylinder for your detail parts, your drain cocks that are painted in the detail bag. They are there. We have the front bogie again. Like I said, there's a hole for the screw and then pocket slot to go in there, which I like the idea, if I'm honest with you. All locomotives should have a front pocket or front coupler applied, so people can head shunt it into the sidings or double head, whatever. I don't think the bogie wheels pick up, but the 6 driving wheels definitely pick up, and it's the old-fashioned copper strip. We have them on the 6 driving wheels. We also can see the motion from this view. Speaking of the motion, you can see that little extra moving part that I mentioned at the start. That's here, you can get a better view of it, and it's quite unusual and I like it. We have, I think it's 4 free screws to take off the base key plate, and there you get your cog. I think it's the centre one that's geared to to start the locomotive, looking at it. The wheels are clean, the wheels are green as well. There's little bits of detail all under here. You can also see the cab steps as well. Like I said, if I've missed anything at all during this, I am really sorry. And finally, as we do underneath look at the tender and the loco and tender connection. The loco and tender connection is the old-fashioned Hornby one, which is a plug with wires going across from the loco to the tender, and then we have a metal bar going across with a screw on either side. If you look closely between the wires and the bar going across, you can see the foreplate between the tender and locomotive. That does move, I did forget to mention it, I am sorry. That is there. Like the locomotive, we have all of the wheels, well, all the 6 wheels pick up. It's a copper strip again. These holes for the brake rigging, there's also holes on the locomotive for the brake rigging as well, forgot to mention that. We do have a water scoop. We also have a couple of screws to take off, I think if you want to clean them out, lubricate, that sort of thing. They are there. Again, just remember the plug. And then we have the NEM tension lock at the end. You can also see the steps and the buffers. Overall, it's a quite nice looking locomotive and tender. Tender intrigues me. So next up will be the usual test that I do with my locomotives. On Hornby's website, it does say it can do second radius. I do have second radius, so let's do the points test and the inner loop, which is second radius. So here goes, shall we? Got 25. Again, 25 again. Maybe a little fast, but it can make it. So yeah, it managed the points pretty well. The second radius, it did slow down a little bit, but it managed it. It did what Hornby said it could do on the website. It does have a 5-pole screw-round motor in. It managed it. It was pretty well. Next up will be some slow speed, and I'll find it a train to pull. So here goes. Yeah, that's because of the controller wire, sorry. Not bad, 20. Speed up a little bit. Yeah, that was stopping because the controller wire is a bit loose in places, so I do apologise. So yeah guys, that's the end of the review and the running session. Before I give my opinion on the model and tell you the price, I'll do what I normally do and tell you what it was pulling, which was 2 6-wheeled milk tankers, Hornby and a Dapple/NRM one, and then we had the Hatton's Great Northern 6-wheel coach, full brake. The reason for that is I saw a photo online of a BR version of this pulling the exact same train, well, not with the liveries, but the style of wagons it was pulling. So the only reason for doing it is just something different. It probably would look better with some actual liveries on the 6-wheeled tankers, but I like it. So let's get on to the price. The price for this that I paid, and this is before the increase that happens on September the 1st, 2024. I pre-ordered mine when it was first announced by Hornby in January 2023. I think it was £209 that I pre-ordered it for, but everything's gone up ever since. And Kerno were lovely to email me saying, we can't do you the price we pre-ordered it at, but we can do you a price that is cheaper than what it's going to be. Which they offered me £213.74, which I happily said yes to that. So that was nice of Kerno to sort of agree with the pre-order price. Fair play to them. But if you buy this direct from Kerno or any other model shop, depending on the model shop that is, you're talking around £225, £224, depending on the model shop. Some may be more higher, some may be a little bit lower. But if you get this one, or the BR version one, direct from Hornby themselves, you are talking £249.99, which is £250, give or take. That is again before the price increase. I must stress that, because when this video comes out, literally the next week there is a price increase, so just be aware. Again, that's for a new tooled item, at least the tender is, and it looks like the shell definitely is. That's die cast. You have sprung buffers. You don't have any flickering firebox or the push fit tender loco connection. Again, I'm not a fan of the flickering firebox or anything like that. It doesn't seem a reasonably bad price, especially at the retailer's end. Again, I can't tell you to go out and buy one or not. It's really down to your preference, your budget, and if you want one or not. But for me, as an Lner fan, it was a must for having the Streamlined B17/5 or the Streamlined B17. There was only ever 2 that Gresley did, and the other one was City of London, and Hornby are doing that in the BR livery. When it did get announced, I did badger Hornby or Simon Kohler with photos of the actual model that I came across in books I have or books I've seen online, and saying, look, here's another photo, here's another photo. And I think, if I'm honest with you, he may have got a little bit tired of that, but he didn't mind, he wasn't nasty, he was fine with that. So I was really looking forward to the model, and the model hasn't disappointed me in any way. It runs okay for me, for my standards, it runs okay. Hornby have gone to like a lot of detail, the team behind it have gone. The only negative thing, if you have to say a negative thing about it, the only negative thing for me was there's a little bit of a grinding noise going around some of the bends. I don't know if it's something rubbing against the shell, or it could even be because it's a die-cast body. The noise amplifies inside. It simply just could be that. But after putting it out, that's the only issue I had. Apart from that, there was a lot of black stuff put all over my track that I cleaned for this review, because I've not used the railway in a long time. So I've got to clean the track. That's the only issue I have, was the black stuff and the noise that it makes occasionally going round corners. For me, there was no quality control, there was no issues, nothing falling off. It did stutter occasionally, that was down to my wiring on my controller, and it doesn't like some of my bends, like I said, for some reason. So that was my take on the all new tooled Hornby Lner B17/5 East Anglia. I hope you find this review useful, and I will see you in the next one. So please take care and goodbye.